You think you can just take everything from me? My sister's voice cut through the quiet of the office like a razor, sharp and venomous. It was almost 8 in the evening, the building mostly empty, but her words felt like they echoed through every corner. I looked up from my laptop, trying to steady my breath. "Monica, what are you talking about?" I asked calmly, though inside my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. She didn't even blink. "You know exactly what I mean. Dad's company, our company. You think you can just walk in and claim it like it's yours? Well, you're wrong, it's mine." I blinked, disbelief and shock crashing over me. Monica, my younger sister by 2 years, standing there like she was the queen of everything we'd grown up with. Me, Mia Reynolds, 32, CEO in training, financial analyst, the one Dad trusted to take over his empire someday. The one who had spent years building up her skills, making connections, working tirelessly. And now this, my own sister threatening me in my office. "I don't want to fight, Monica," I said quietly, closing my laptop slowly. "Why are you doing this?" Her laugh was bitter, cold. "Because you're too soft, Mia, always have been. Dad deserves someone who can actually fight for what's theirs, not a doormat." I swallowed hard, feeling the sting of those words. I wasn't soft, I was strategic, deliberate, focused. But Monica's version of strength was different. She was cunning, manipulative, and she had a way of turning people against you without even breaking a sweat. Before I could say anything else, her phone buzzed. She glanced down, smirked, and waved it at me. "Read it," she said. I hesitated, then grabbed the phone. The message was from Dad's lawyer. "Due to recent developments, the board has temporarily suspended your involvement in the company. Further notice to follow." My world tilted, suspended. What developments? I hadn't been told a thing. "Monica," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "what is this?" Her eyes sparkled with triumph. "I told you, Dad's company is mine now, and thanks to a little persuasion, the board agrees." I felt like the floor gave way beneath me. Years of loyalty, of hard work, wiped out with a text. But it wasn't just that. What hurt most was the betrayal. The person I had always trusted, who'd been my sister, was now my enemy. The office lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows on the sleek glass walls. My mind raced. How had she done this? Who had she convinced? What had she told Dad? I looked away, fighting the urge to break down. But no. This was a battle, not a breakdown. That night, as I sat alone in my office, I replayed every conversation, every family dinner, every smile that had seemed real but was now stained with lies. Monica's words echoed louder than ever. "You're too soft." Was I really? Was this the moment I'd been waiting for, or the moment I'd been blindsided? I reached for my phone and called my closest friend and mentor, Jenna. "Mia, what's going on?" "You sounded off earlier." Jenna's voice was calm but concerned. I hesitated, then said the words out loud for the first time. "Monica's taken Dad's company away from me." There was silence on the other end, then Jenna's steady voice. "We'll figure this out, you're not alone." But I felt alone, entrapped. My own family, my own blood had set a trap, and I had fallen right into it. That night, lying awake, I kept asking myself, how do you fight a battle where the enemy knows your every move? And more terrifyingly, how do you fight your own sister? The city lights outside my window blurred through the rain. I thought of Dad's old office, the smell of leather and cigars, the legacy he'd built from nothing. Could I really let it slip away because of family betrayal? Or was this the moment I finally showed them all who Mia Reynolds really was? I didn't have the answers yet, but one thing was clear: I wasn't going down without a fight. The next morning, my phone was buzzing before I even opened my eyes. Jenna's text, "We need to talk." Now, I threw on a jacket and headed to the cafe near the office. If I was going to survive this, I needed allies and fast. Jenna was already there, a steaming cup of coffee in hand, and that steady, no-nonsense look she always wore when business was serious. "Tell me everything," she said as soon as I sat down. I took a deep breath. "Monica, she didn't just get the board to suspend me. She fabricated evidence, documents, emails. She convinced Dad I was trying to sabotage the company." Jenna's eyes narrowed. "That snake. You always said she had a way with people, smooth, calculating." I nodded grimly. "She's been playing this game for months. I found out she's been meeting with some of Dad's closest advisors behind my back, twisting stories, planting lies." Jenna sipped her coffee, then leaned forward. "Did you confront Dad?" "No, not yet. I'm scared, Jenna. If he believes Monica, everything I worked for will be gone. Then we fix that, but first we need to expose Monica's tactics." I clenched my fists. She's always had this habit. When she's cornered, she smiles sweet, acts innocent. She has this necklace she wears, little black onyx beads. She calls it her armor, like it protects her from consequences. Jenna laughed softly. Armor, huh? Well, we're going to shatter that. Just then my phone rang. Caller ID, Ethan. Ethan was Dad's right-hand man at the company, someone I trusted. His voice was rougher than usual when he answered. Mia, listen, you need to be careful. Monica's got a whole network backing her now. I heard she even bought off some of the legal team. Ethan, don't let them scare you, I said firmly. We'll get through this. He sighed. It's worse than you think. People are scared to cross Monica. I could almost hear the fear in his words, and it made my blood boil. Later that day, I met with Lisa and Marcus, two longtime colleagues and friends who had been with Dad since the beginning. We gathered in a quiet conference room, the weight of betrayal hanging thick in the air. Lisa, always blunt, said, I've seen Monica twist truths before, but she's playing dirty, Mia. Lying, manipulating everyone. Marcus nodded. And the worst part, Dad seems to be listening. He hasn't called you since the text. I know, I said, voice barely steady. I keep wondering, was he ever really on my side? Or did Monica poison that well too? Lisa reached out, squeezing my hand. Dad's stubborn, he'll come around, but Monica, she's dangerous. You need to watch every step. We shared a grim look. The battlefield wasn't just the company, it was family. Monica's texts started coming in again, each one dripping with false concern, sugar-coated insults. Mia, you're so predictable, you always think you're in control. Watch how fast the tides turn. I deleted the messages without replying. Jenna warned me not to engage. She's trying to get a rise out of you, don't give her the satisfaction. Days later, I caught wind of another move. Monica had invited Dad to a private dinner with some key shareholders. Without telling me, Ethan pulled me aside at the office. This is a power play. She's lining them up to back her, not you. I stared at him. I thought family meant something to him. He shrugged. Monica's playing on fears Dad didn't even know he had. She's painting you as reckless, unstable. The anger inside me grew, but I stayed calm. Then it's time to show them who I really am. That night, alone in my apartment, I stared at the ceiling, trying to keep my mind clear. How had Monica convinced so many people? How had she become so ruthless so fast? A memory hit me. Years ago, when we were kids, Monica would always smile when she got what she wanted. But there was a darkness behind it, a hunger. It was never about sharing or fairness, it was always about winning. I realized then that the woman I thought I knew was a stranger. The next morning, I found a voicemail from Monica on my phone. Her voice was silky, but the words were poison. Mia, darling, it's not personal, just business. You should learn that before you lose everything. I played it again, the coldness sinking in. That was Monica's true power, the ability to smile while stabbing you in the back. But this wasn't the end. I promised myself that whatever it took, I would tear down that armor of hers. Because no necklace, no smile, no twisted web of lies could stop me from fighting for what was mine. Was Monica really the unstoppable force she seemed? Or was she just a woman desperate to hide her own insecurities behind manipulation? The question burned in my mind. And as I looked at the city skyline that night, I vowed to find the answer, before it was too late. It was late when I finally sat down at my kitchen table, the hum of the city outside a faint backdrop to the storm raging inside me. The days since Monica's ultimatum felt like a slow-motion avalanche. Everything I thought I knew about my family, my life, was crumbling. But beneath the shock and anger, a quiet resolve was starting to take root. If Monica thought she could simply walk in and take Dad's company from me, she was sorely mistaken. I reached for the old leather-bound notebook I kept tucked away in a drawer, a habit from years ago when I was building my first financial models. Flipping through the pages, I found what I was looking for. Detailed notes, contacts, strategies, and little reminders about how to approach a hostile takeover or handle boardroom battles. I hadn't thought about this notebook in years, but tonight it was my anchor. The sound of a soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Jenna peeked in, her face drawn but resolute. I figured you'd still be up, she said quietly, stepping inside. I smiled weakly. I can't sleep. Too much to plan. She pulled up a chair and sat. So what's the plan? I hesitated, then shared the fragments I'd been piecing together. Monica's got the board and Dad fooled with those fake documents. But there's one thing she didn't count on me. Jenna raised an eyebrow. Mia, you're the smartest person I know. If anyone can untangle this mess, it's you. I swallowed a lump of doubt. It's not just about intelligence. It's about patience and strategy. I've been preparing for something like this, maybe not a family betrayal, but a corporate battle. I have to be smarter, faster, and stronger. Her eyes softened. And you will be. The next morning, I met with Marcus again, this time in his small but cozy apartment. He was a quiet man, mid-40s, who'd always been the backbone of Dad's operations, loyal and methodical. He had the kind of integrity you rarely see in business these days, and I trusted him implicitly. "I've been digging through the company archives," Marcus said, setting down a manila folder thick with papers. "There are inconsistencies in the recent board decisions, things that don't add up. I think Monica's been forging signatures and doctoring meeting minutes." I flipped through the documents carefully, each forged signature a slap in the face. "Marcus, if this is true, it means we have evidence," I said, voice low but steady. He nodded. "And we're not the only ones who suspect. Lisa's been quiet, but she's been rallying support behind the scenes." "Lisa," I smiled at the thought of her blunt honesty and unwavering loyalty. "Good, we need her." Over the next few days, I kept my routine at the office, but my mind was elsewhere, working like a machine, piecing together Monica's deception and rebuilding my own case. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, I ran into Lisa in the hallway. She was pacing, her face flushed with frustration. "Mia," she said without preamble, "Monica's been holding secret meetings with some of the company's biggest investors. She's sweet-talking them, promising cuts and favors." I frowned. "And what do they want?" Lisa shrugged. "Stability, profit, but they're scared of the drama, and Monica's making herself look like the safe bet." My jaw tightened. "We can't let fear win." Lisa nodded. "We need a game changer, something that proves Monica's lies and shows the real consequences of her actions." I swallowed, thinking hard. "Evidence, proof." "Exactly," she said. "And I have a contact, a journalist who's been sniffing around corporate corruption. If we can feed her the right story, it'll blow this whole thing wide open." That night I sat alone, replaying every conversation in memory. I remembered how Monica had always been two-faced, smiling warmly one moment, then turning cold and calculating the next. The necklace she wore, the so-called armor, was more than just jewelry. It was a symbol of her mask. I thought about Dad, his aging hands, and the company he built from the ground up. He had trusted both of us once, but Monica's greed had poisoned that trust, and I had to find a way to clear my name and reclaim what was rightfully mine. Suddenly, a flashback hit me, one I hadn't thought of in years. It was a conversation Dad and I had during a quiet summer evening at his lake house. He'd said, "Mia, in business and in life, the strongest armor you can have is knowledge. Know your numbers, know your people, and never let anyone make you feel small." His words burned in my mind like a beacon. The next day, Jenna and I met with the journalist Lisa recommended, Samantha, a sharp, fearless woman in her early 30s who didn't shy away from controversy. "Monica's not just stealing a company," Samantha said, eyes gleaming. "She's manipulating people, fabricating evidence, and tearing apart a family. That story sells itself." I nodded, "But we need proof. Documents, witnesses, something concrete." Samantha smiled. "Leave that to me, but you need to be ready. Once we go public, there's no turning back." I glanced at Jenna, who gave me a reassuring nod. That night, I sat in my office, staring at the city lights, feeling a strange mix of fear and hope. The battle was about to shift from quiet whispers to a roaring storm. How much longer could Monica keep her lies hidden? How many more people would she hurt? And most importantly, was I ready to fight fire with fire? My phone buzzed, a message from Marcus. "Found more discrepancies, meet me tomorrow." I smiled grimly. The warning signs were clear and the pieces were coming together. The real question was, how far was Monica willing to go before the truth came crashing down? As I prepared for what was next, one thing was certain. I wasn't just fighting for a company. I was fighting for justice, for my family, and for myself. And no armor, no matter how dark or shiny, could protect a lie forever. By the time I stepped into Marcus's office the next morning, I already felt the energy shift. He barely looked up as I entered, too focused on the screen in front of him. "You're going to want to see this," he muttered, gesturing me over. "After watching this video, may your heart feel at ease and revenge be fun without exhaustion. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep our spirits bright together." On the monitor was a scanned set of financial reports, old ones before Monica got involved. Side by side with the current ones, the discrepancies were jarring. Vendor accounts that didn't exist 2 months ago were now logging transactions. Entire departments had inflated expense reports. Everything was buried in confusing language and misfiled paperwork. It was elegant in its deception. She's laundering through shell contractors, Marcus said, voice clipped. And Dad doesn't know if he did. He'd never stand for it, I finished. He nodded. I backed away from the screen, rubbing my temples. She's bold, I'll give her that. She's sloppy, Marcus corrected. She thought no one would look this deep. But I had, and now I had proof. Later that day, in the privacy of my office, I laid it all out in front of Jenna and Lisa. The reports, the fabricated vendors, the suspiciously approved reimbursements, all tied back to Monica's private email and login credentials. I can't believe she'd be this careless, Lisa muttered. She wasn't, I said. She thought she'd already won. Jenna gave a low whistle. You're holding a bomb. I looked at them both. We need to use it, but not recklessly. I want her to feel it, to know she's lost control before anyone even says a word. What are you thinking? Jenna asked. A quiet presentation, I said. Boardroom, just the executives, no warning, let her see the walls close in. Lisa leaned forward. You're not even going to tell Dad first. I shook my head, not yet. He needs to see everything with his own eyes, without Monica's filter. The plan was set for Friday, 2 days away. In that time, I rehearsed every slide, every line, with the intensity of a surgeon prepping for a high-risk operation. Samantha, the journalist, also worked quietly in the background, digging through more documents and preparing for a public release if needed. She respected the timing I asked for. This had to start internally. The morning of the meeting, I wore my darkest suit and pulled my hair back into a sharp ponytail. No nonsense. Focused. Strategic. Monica strolled in late, wearing red, lips curled in that smug smile she'd perfected. She shot me a glance and said just loud enough, "You look tense, Mia, trouble sleeping." I didn't answer. The room quieted as the executives took their seats. Dad walked in looking tired but alert. He gave me a nod, neutral. Monica sat beside him like a queen guarding her throne. I stood, the lights dimmed. The screen behind me lit up with the first slide, Misappropriated Vendor Funds, Quarter 3. Good morning, I said calmly. I'd like to walk you through some recent findings concerning financial irregularities tied to internal approvals. Monica shifted. Is this a budget review? Because if it is. It's not, I interrupted. My voice was steady, even. It's a fraud briefing. The air left the room. One by one, I laid out the evidence. Transaction logs, emails, cross-referenced approvals, every item pointing unmistakably back to Monica. Here, I said, highlighting a login timestamp. You'll see these were authorized from Monica's personal account at 1:14 a.m. on August 18. She scoffed. That proves nothing. Someone could have hacked me. I clicked to the next slide. And this email, sent from your address at 1:18 a.m. to confirm payment release. Silence. Lisa stood up, handing Dad a copy of the printed report. These aren't isolated incidents. They're consistent across 3 months. Dad's face was stone. Monica stood abruptly. This is a setup. Jenna leaned forward. By whom? You're the only one who benefits from these payments. Monica's eyes darted around the room, searching for someone to defend her. No one spoke. I watched her closely. The red lipstick, the perfect hair, the onyx necklace that always hung around her neck, it all looked cheap now, like a costume losing its power. Monica, I said not unkindly, you didn't need to do this. You're smart, you could have earned your place. She glared at me. You always played the victim, Dad's favorite, you think you're better. I never needed to be better, I said softly. I just needed to be honest. She laughed bitterly. Congratulations, you finally got your audience. And with that, she walked out, not another word. The room stayed quiet until the sound of the door clicking shut. Dad looked down at the report again, then at me, his expression unreadable. We'll need to conduct a full audit, he said finally. Effective immediately. I nodded, heart racing but face calm. Jenna squeezed my shoulder gently. Lisa gave me the smallest nod. And Marcus, he just leaned back and smiled like he'd seen justice served. Outside, the sun had broken through the clouds. It wasn't over yet, not by a long shot. But the first blow had landed. And I was ready to see what came next. Monica didn't come home that night, not that I expected her to. After the presentation, after the stunned silence from the board, she vanished like smoke. No calls, no messages. Her office was locked by security that same afternoon. Her executive email deactivated. Just like that, the empire she tried to steal began to crumble beneath her. But for me, the storm was just beginning. The morning after, I met Dad in his office. He didn't offer a hug or even a smile, just gestured for me to sit. The air between us was tense, brittle. I reviewed everything again, he said, voice tight. I spoke to the compliance team. They confirmed the documents. I nodded, waiting. She used me, he said finally, rubbing his temples. She used my trust. She used all of us, I replied gently. His eyes met mine, red-rimmed, tired. Do you know what it's like, Mia, watching your daughter turn into someone you don't recognize? My throat tightened. Yes, I whispered, I do. He looked down, guilt flickering across his face. I should have seen it sooner. But you didn't, I said, not unkindly, because you never thought you had to. He leaned back in his chair. Legal's launching an investigation. The evidence is enough to press charges. But I wanted to ask you first, do we pursue this publicly? The weight of that question hung heavily in the room. Monica, my sister, might be a fraud, but she was still family. Jenna's voice echoed in my head. Sometimes the truth isn't just for justice. It's for the people watching who think power always wins. I breathed in slowly. We go public, we don't hide this. If we cover it up, it tells everyone else they can do the same. Dad studied me for a long moment, then nodded. All right. By afternoon, the story had broken. Samantha's article landed with precision, no drama, just facts. Executive suspended amid fraud scandal at Reynolds Financial. My name was mentioned briefly, only in relation to the audit and compliance team. Monica, however, was front and center. The fallout was swift. Investors demanded transparency. Shareholders called emergency meetings. Staff whispered in hallways. Her once admirers distanced themselves faster than you could blink. I watched it all unfold from the sidelines, calm but alert. The company held firm. Then came the legal response. A subpoena. Monica was being summoned to provide a statement, but she didn't show up. Instead, her lawyer sent a letter. She was taking a temporary medical leave and wouldn't be available for questioning. Lisa snorted when she read it. Classic Monica, vanish and play victim. But something in me hesitated. She's cornered. And Monica doesn't corner well. Marcus knocked on my office door that afternoon, holding a folder. You're going to want to see this. Inside were screenshots. Financial movements from Monica's accounts, funds wired to overseas banks, luxury purchases tagged under shell accounts, and emails confirming international real estate acquisitions. She's planning to disappear, I murmured, scanning the files. She's already halfway gone, Marcus said. I sat back. And yet she still hasn't looked me in the eye. Because Monica didn't want closure, she wanted escape. But justice wasn't done yet. Later that week, a closed-door hearing was held to decide the official consequences of her actions. I testified. So did Lisa and Marcus. Dad, to his credit, stood before the panel and admitted his own failure to oversee her unchecked influence. It was painful, but necessary. When it ended, the ruling was clear. Permanent disqualification from any executive position, restitution of misused funds, and a public record of the misconduct. The company was cleared, the name was salvaged, but Monica, she was nowhere to be found. Her apartment stood empty, her phone disconnected. No one had seen her in days. As I left the office that evening, the sky over Manhattan was turning a rich gold, the city humming below. Jenna walked beside me, silent for a while. Then she said, "You did it." I nodded slowly. We did. She looked at me. How does it feel? I paused before answering. Like justice, but not peace, not yet. And as the city lights flickered on one by one, I wondered, when people fall, do they ever see the ground coming? Or do they keep pretending, even in free fall? 2 weeks passed. Not a single word from Monica, but the wreckage she left behind was undeniable. The accounts she'd drained were being traced and frozen. The properties she'd acquired, confiscated. Her name was now synonymous with scandal. Media outlets dug into every angle, spinning stories from old college disputes to high society lies. It was as if the world couldn't get enough of watching a golden girl fall. I sat with Dad in the boardroom one afternoon, going over the company's recovery plan. He was quieter now, more deliberate. The betrayal had aged him, but it also humbled him. "She fooled me, Mia," he said, voice rough, "but not you." I glanced up from the papers. "She didn't just fool you, she built a world around it." He stared out the window. I kept thinking maybe I was too hard on her growing up, maybe I pushed her to compete too much. "You gave us both the same start," I replied. "She chose the shortcuts." He nodded slowly. "And you chose the fight." Later that day, I bumped into Lisa in the hallway. Her phone buzzed with a news alert and she showed it to me. Monica's luxury condo in Barcelona, raided. Spanish authorities confirmed she's not there. I felt a strange hollowness, not satisfaction, not even relief, just finality. At that moment, Ethan approached, holding a slim envelope. She sent this, he said, handing it to me. My heart jolted. Monica's handwriting, no return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper, short, clean. I never thought you'd beat me. I guess I underestimated how much you wanted it, or maybe how much I didn't. No apology. No remorse, just acknowledgement. I folded it neatly and tucked it into my coat pocket. That night, Jenna and I met for dinner. She raised a glass toward me. To survival, she said with a smirk. I smiled faintly. To reinvention. She tilted her head. You know she'll keep hiding, right? Let her, I said. She's already lost everything. Her name, her power, her lies, and deep down I think she knows that. Because while I stood surrounded by a team rebuilding something real, Monica had nothing but shadows and silence. She lost her job, she lost her public image. But worst of all, she lost her own belief that she could control everyone. And I didn't just survive, I stood up taller. Justice wasn't loud. It wasn't a headline or a viral moment. It was quiet. And I carried it with me not as a trophy, but as truth. 3 months later, I stood in the very boardroom where everything had unraveled and been rebuilt. The company was different now. Lighter, more transparent. We'd reshaped teams, restructured policies, and put safeguards in place to make sure no one, no matter how connected, could manipulate power the way Monica had. I had declined the CEO position when it was formally offered. Not because I wasn't ready, but because I realized something during the storm. My ambition wasn't rooted in a title. It was rooted in purpose. Instead, I proposed something new, a department focused on corporate integrity and ethical leadership training. A long name but a clear mission, and they let me build it from scratch. Jenna joined as co-director. Lisa became our internal advisor. Even Marcus agreed to consult part-time, his sharp eyes now focused on mentoring younger talent. We were more than colleagues. We were a team forged by fire. The launch day arrived quietly without flair. Just a few key staff, a small media presence, and a plaque mounted outside our new office wing. It read, "Integrity first, founded on truth." Dad came by that afternoon, walking slowly, a small bouquet of blue orchids in hand, my mother's favorite. "For your new beginning," he said, placing them on my desk. "I'm proud of what you built." I smiled. "I'm proud of what we fixed." He nodded, but his gaze drifted for a moment, distant. "Have you heard from her?" I shook my head. "No. Nothing since the letter." He exhaled, heavy. "I still wonder where she is, what she thinks, whether she blames us or herself." "I don't think she's ready to answer those questions," I said. "Not yet." He looked around the office, then at me. "You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for." "No," I replied, "you just forgot who raised me." That made him laugh, a real laugh. That evening, long after the building emptied, I stayed behind, watching the city through the window. Lights flickered, cars crawled below, and the hum of life pulsed steadily. I reached into my drawer and pulled out something small, Monica's onyx necklace. Security had found it in her drawer during the audit. I never gave it back. It wasn't a trophy, it was a reminder. That armor, no matter how polished, can't protect a lie. I held it in my hand for a moment, then quietly dropped it into a velvet box and closed the lid. Jenna knocked gently. "Ready to go?" I turned, smiling. "Yeah, let's go." We stepped into the hallway. Our footsteps echoed softly, and for once the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. As we left the building, Jenna asked, "What's next?" I looked up at the stars, steady above the skyline. "We help others see what they're worth before someone tries to rewrite their story." She nodded. "Good answer." And just as we turned the corner, I remembered something Dad used to say. "When you lose everything fake, all that's left is what's real." I repeated it quietly, more to myself than anyone else, then smiled. Because what was real was finally mine.